Welcome to Sueños to Success with Dr. Victor Rios, the podcast where we dive deep into how life's toughest challenges can become stepping stones to success. If you've ever felt stuck or overwhelmed by adversity and you're looking for inspiration to take the next step, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Dr. Victor Rios, and in this first episode, I'll be sharing my own story, a journey of adversity, pain, and ultimately transformation. And for some of my audience, I would like to translate sueños into English. It just means dreams in Spanish. And, sometimes we just get caught up in just our dreams and we don't turn them into reality. That's why it's Sueños to Success. The purpose of this podcast is simple: to inspire you to break through the barriers holding you back, and to give you the tools you need to create your own success story. In each episode, we'll explore real-life stories of people who have overcome extraordinary challenges, as well as evidence-based strategies, the research to help you reframe your mindset, take actionable steps, and transform your life. This is more than just a conversation. It's a blueprint for turning setbacks into opportunities. So a bit about me today: I hold a PhD from UC Berkeley. I'm a MacArthur Foundation professor. I've given a TED Talk with over 1.7 million views. I've written 9 books. I've advised the Obama administration on gun violence and policing. And I've raised 2 children who are now graduate students, one at UC Berkeley and one at University of Chicago. I've been happily married for 25 years. And have been featured in a nationally aired documentary called The Pushouts. But my journey began very differently in the streets of the rough inner city as a high school dropout and a juvenile delinquent. One teacher believed in me so much, she tricked me into believing in myself, and that changed it all for me. That's what catapulted me to a life of seeking success. In this podcast, we'll dive into research and brainstorm ideas based on cutting-edge studies in psychology, sociology, economics, education, to explore what makes people thrive despite their adversities. We'll break down the science of resilience and success, discussing the habits, mindsets, and networks that can empower you to rise above your challenges. Whether you're at the beginning of your journey or looking for new ways to stay motivated, Sueños to Success will be your guide. To kick things off, I want to share my own story, a journey that began in the streets of Oakland, California. It's a story shaped by poverty, loss, and tough choices, but importantly, it's about transformation. Because no matter how dark things get, there's always light when you choose to rise above. One of my early stories, at least what I could vaguely remember from recollection from my brother and my mom, is one day we're at the park. I'm a toddler hanging out with my mom and my brother. It was about 7 or 8. I was about 3 or 4. And we were sitting under a tree at a park in Oakland. And at first, it felt really fun. My brother and I were playing. He punched me in the stomach, and like older siblings do. And I started crying. I lost my air. I was gasping for air. And I go to my mom running, not able to talk or breathe. I'm just like, and she said to me and my brother in Spanish, "Se calman o los calmo." And what that means is, you guys calm down or I'm going to calm you down. My mom was old school. She had very harsh discipline. So I listened. I knew to listen. So I just listened to my mom. I was quiet, crying, whimpering internally, trying to catch my breath. And I finally caught my breath. And I noticed that the sun was setting. And I noticed that, the birds kind of stopped chirping. And I noticed it started to get cold. I had a t-shirt on. So I kind of was getting cold. So I turned to my mom and I said in Spanish, "Mamá, ¿qué horas nos vamos a casa? What time are we going home?" And she looked at me. She looked at my brother. She looked back at me and she said, "We're not going home. We're staying here. were sleeping under this tree. I didn't pay the rent. You see, for many moments in my growing up, we were housing insecure. Either we were literally on the streets or we were hanging out with family that was putting us up in their living room, on the kitchen floor, wherever we could fit. So, I felt very lucky that I had some place to stay most of my life growing up, but I also felt very unfortunate that we were broke. But even though we were broke as a family, we were not broken. We had so many opportunities around us in terms of family, in terms of culture, language. And so as a little kid, that's what kept me going. Early on, I got lucky. My mom found early childhood education for me. So she signed me up for this little program with Head Start. And so it's like preschool before preschool. And these teachers taught me a lot. One thing they taught me was to be hopeful for the future. I remember them teaching me about learning to read, teaching me about learning to learn, and teaching me about having a career in the future. And so, I was really hopeful. I remember reading little books that kept me hopeful. And I remember just feeling like despite all the drug abuse, alcohol abuse, violence, my mom physically just taking it too far with us, with beating us, that all of that, and sometimes her not being around, what I was going through at the time is what many children that live in poverty go through, which experts called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And these are experiences of either abuse or poverty or neglect. I was going through all of it. And despite that, I had these educators, these teachers that were teaching me to be hopeful. The research shows that young people that are going through adversity but end up experiencing stories of hope or end up feeling hopeful about their future do a lot better than kids that don't hear these stories of hope or don't start to think about their future. So this is called hope theory. And so in hope theory, the whole idea is that individuals that have adversity, you provide them with these narratives of hope and identities of hope, and you help them build those identities of hope. And of course, you provide them resources so they could be hopeful. In this case, nourishment, housing, job opportunities, etc. So as a little kid, I felt this hope from my educators, but my life was still feeling pretty hopeless. I became fatalistic, even though I had a little seed of hope. My environment was just keeping me from believing in that hope. And by third grade, I started doing really bad in school. I didn't listen to my teachers. I was that kid with my head on the desk. I was that kid ignoring my teachers. I remember one incident that kind of caused all of this. I was in class in third grade. I was sitting in the front of class, and my teacher, she asked me to read a word on the board. And I refused to. I just nodded my head like, nope. And she kind of started to raise her voice, said, Victor, read this word on the board. And I was like, nope. I was just like, closed my eyes and said, nope. And finally, she got upset. She kicked me out of class for not reading the word on the board and sent me to the principal. What my teacher didn't realize is that the reason I wouldn't read the word on the board was not because I was giving her attitude or because I was trying to be too cool for school and trying to prove to my friends in the class that I wasn't a nerd. The reason I wouldn't read this word was because I needed glasses, and my teacher had no clue. I didn't realize I needed glasses either until I was about 14 years old. That's when I got my first pair of glasses. I would just look up at the sky at night, and I'd see these big, like, the stars look like big blurs to me. And when I got my first pair of glasses, I look up at the sky and I noticed that the stars look like dots. And so I asked my brother who bought me the glasses. He had a job by then and he took care of me. So he bought me my glasses. And I asked him, hey, bro, do the stars look like dots to you, or do they look like these big giant sparkles? And he said, they look like dots. And that's when I realized what stars look like, at least to someone with some decent vision. But going back to my teacher, she had no clue what I was going through. And sometimes when adults don't understand what kids are going through, they end up misjudging them and they end up putting them in a place where they shouldn't put them. So anyway, my teacher kicked me out of class. I ended up with the principal. My principal got mad at me. He called my mom. My mom came from work and she ended up, reprimanding me. She gave me a beating. And so this is the first time I remember just being like, I hate school. I don't like school. I don't want to go to school. I'm done with school. And so I actually said to myself, fuck school. And so then I had that attitude, fourth grade, all the way to 11th grade. I didn't do one assignment. I didn't do one math problem. I didn't read one book. I just did nothing in school all the way through 11th grade. I had an 8-year learning loss. That's how long I went without learning anything. What this makes me reflect on and think about is the way in which some teachers use deficit thinking when they think about their students. And there's a literature out there that looks at deficit thinking. There's research that we've conducted where we have found that educators that use deficit thinking are less likely to have students that do well in tests. Now, the flip side of deficit thinking is asset-based thinking. And when you have asset-based thinking, when you see children for what they bring in terms of the assets or the treasures that their culture and their communities have, you're more likely to see success in students. But when you have an environment of deficit thinking, what happens is that you develop a negative self-talk as an individual. And so when you develop a negative self-talk, what ends up happening is that you see life as hopeless, as fatalistic, because everything about you is not good in this world. So why would you even want to plan for a future of success? A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that individuals engaged in frequent negative self-talk performed worse on problem-solving tasks and showed lower academic persistence than those with more positive self-talk. So if you're someone that has negative self-talk, change it, because you'll perform worse at work, at school, with your family, in your daily life. You got to have positive self-talk. What was going on with me at school is I was learning to take on negative self-talk because people saw me and my community and my family as a deficit. And that led me to not believe in myself. There was a hidden curriculum at school, and that hidden curriculum was, this is part of the research as well, by the way, a hidden curriculum. That hidden curriculum was people like you don't succeed. People like you who come from poverty, you don't make it. People like you who are hopeless, you will end up on the streets or end up locked up or end up dead. If we weren't ready to learn as students, school was not ready for us to succeed and to teach us. We were being taught that if we didn't participate in the dominant culture because we came from poverty, we could never have access to opportunities. So this is kind of my experience at the time as a student. And so I ended up acting out, and I acted out all the way to 11th grade. I ended up dropping out of school in 8th grade, and then again, 9th grade, 10th grade. Ended up in juvie. I was just on the streets. I was stealing. I was selling drugs. And I ended up going to juvie 3 times for 3 felonies. I remember a moment in juvie where the guard was like, "We're gonna teach you a lesson," and I was trying to be a tough guy, so I didn't care. Remember, I said I was fatalistic, so he's like, "I'm gonna teach you a lesson," and I'm like, "I don't care." So he throws me in a cell with an older boy that was about 17. I must have been about 15 at the time. He was a lot bigger than me. And I'm in this little tiny cell with this guy. And the guy's supposed to beat me up. But he asked me, what are you in here for? And I was just nervous. I didn't want to talk to him. But I told him that I was in there because I stole a car. And he called me stupid. He said, "You're stupid." And I said, "Yeah, I know I'm stupid." And then remember the negative self-talk, right? So I was like, I know I'm stupid. And then he said, you should be stealing high performance American cars. And I didn't know how to steal those. I was stealing like these little old Toyotas. And I told him, I said, I don't know how to steal those. And he goes, oh, don't worry, I'll teach you. So I guess the system did teach me a lesson. And that lesson was to be a bigger criminal. So, sometimes we think we're teaching people a lesson by being harsh on them. But the reality is that maybe we're helping them dig themselves deeper into a hole. That was my experience as a teenager. I really thought I was going to end up dead or in prison by the time I turned 18. And I was okay with that. I was fatalistic. But remember, I told you I had a little hope in me when I was a little kid because of these early childhood education teachers. Well, that hope somehow stayed there. Just a little dim light in me remained. And one day, a really bad, tragic event happens to me. My best friend, he gets shot and passes away in front of me. It caused me to pause, and it caused me to think, what is next in my journey? Like, am I really gonna be okay with ending up dead or in prison? And I thought that maybe there is a different option. So I went back to school to look for my teacher. I had this high school teacher. There's one teacher that always believed in me, always talked positively to me, came to my house, knocked on my door. Even though my teacher didn't speak much Spanish and my mom did not speak much English, my teacher still found a way to communicate with my mom, to show her that she cared for me. And my mom started to react by visiting school more and going to meetings more and related to, school and to my well-being. And little by little, I just started to think that maybe this teacher had my best interest in mind. So I went to school to look for this teacher, and she gets a hold of me. She knows I'm in school that day, and she came up to me to ask me how I was doing. Told her I'm okay. She knew what happened to my friend. She tapped me on my shoulder, and right when this teacher tapped me on my shoulder, all my pain, all my fear, all my anger began to grow, and I began to cry like a little kid in front of the whole school. I remember that was a tough moment for me in life because here's this guy that's supposed to be from the streets and show no emotion, and yet I'm crying in front of the whole school. It's a passing hour, and in that moment, I wanted to just melt away and not come back. And I remember my teacher, she opened her arms, she gave me a hug. She said, Victor, I'm here for you. If you're ready to change your life around, I'll be here for you, but you have to do the work. I thought about what my teacher told me and started to go back to her for help. She started to mentor me. She started to connect me with other mentors. And little by little, they all helped me catch up on my grades, catch up on my credits. And I actually ended up graduating from high school on time and with my class, even though I was almost 2 years behind in school. So the research shows that when we provide people that are going through struggle with good mentorship, they end up doing a lot better than if they weren't provided with mentors. There was a study published in the Journal of Youth and Adolescence that found that young people that encounter adversity who end up with mentors, at promise young people is what I call them, were 52% less likely to skip school and 37% less likely to engage in harmful behaviors like substance abuse. Another study published in the Journal of Adolescence found that social support from mentors or family members increased the likelihood of resilience in young people facing adversity. Young people with strong social support networks are 47% more likely to show resilience and achieve their goals. I'll say it again. When someone has social support, whether it's a family member that's always there, relentlessly caring for them, unconditionally loving them. Or if they can't have that family member doing that, maybe a mentor, another adult that cares for them, that unconditionally loves them, that relentlessly supports them, they're 47% more likely to achieve their goals. In a review by the American Psychological Association, research showed that individuals who had high levels of social support were 80% more likely to overcome mental health challenges such as depression and anxiety after a traumatic event. So think about it. If you've been through a traumatic event yourself, if you find someone that's there to socially support you, like a mentor or a caring loved one, or even a stranger that's willing to lend you a hand, you're more likely to get through that event. And what I'm trying to tell you is you got to build people around you that are going to give you that social support, because the research shows that that is what helps you get through. My mentors helped me realize that, as the great poet Rumi would say, the wound is the place where the light enters you. It is in our wounds that we find wisdom. It is in our wounds that we start the process of healing. And not only do we heal ourselves, but we start to heal our families and our communities. Let's take a pause to reflect on some of this information so far. And I want you to reflect on this question. Think about a time in your life when you felt down and someone else stepped up to support you. Who was it? How did it feel? Just want to take a moment also to introduce you to my book, Street Life, Poverty, Gangs, and a PhD. And so this book has a lot of those moments of reflection, tells my story and many other chapters of my story. But more importantly, it has some prescriptives. Like, what is it that we need to do when we're going through these moments of adversity? You can find it on Amazon.com, Street Life by Dr. Victor Rios. Now back to my story. I'm getting ready to graduate high school, and my teacher comes up to me and she asked me what I'm going to do after high school. And I said, I'm going to get a job as a mechanic, make $15 an hour and live a happy life. And she nodded her head and she started laughing and she goes, no, you're going to college. And I was like, I remember the thought, and I actually blurted it out and I said it in Spanish. Teacher, estás loca. And that means you're crazy, right? Estás loca. And she just looked at me like, no, I'm not. You're going to college. And so she fought me until I finally was like, okay, what is college? Like, what do I have to do? And she said, look, if you want to go and help your family out, if you want to go and help your community out, you want to uplift your family out of poverty, if you want to help your community stop the violence and the drug abuse, you need to go to college and learn how to do it. And I started to think that maybe college was something that would benefit me, my family, and my community. So she helped me apply. I applied to Cal State. I got accepted. I had a 1.9 GPA. I don't know how I got in, but they put me under all these special programs for first-generation students. Shout out to my first-generation college students out there and college graduates. They put me in this program. And they gave me tutors and mentors. Remember the research I shared on social support? Well, that social support from tutors and mentors helped me get through college. So the research shows that first-generation graduates and entrepreneurs end up doing well because they find sources of support. So according to a study by the Kauffman Foundation, 44% of entrepreneurs in the U.S. are first-generation college graduates. Can you believe that? These individuals often build businesses by leveraging resilience and networking skills, despite limited initial resources. So I know there's a lot of people out there whose family hands them wealth, but 44% of entrepreneurs, nobody handed them any wealth. They figured it out on their own. Remember that for those of you that want to build a business and want to be your own boss, you can do it. 44% of those that have a business out there did it on their own. So, a survey published in the Journal of Business Psychology found that 62% of first generation professionals experience imposter syndrome at some point in their career. So, let me talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. So, when I got to college, I felt like I didn't belong. I used to wear really baggy pants. I used to wear flannel shirts. I used to wear Lokes branded sunglasses. I slicked my hair back. I had a lowrider 1982 Buick Regal with 13-inch triple gold Dayton's on it, with a sound system with two 15-inch subwoofers and a big amplifier. I mean, I would roll up to school and I was different. I was different. I was proud of where I came from. And I felt like an imposter, like I don't belong here. And it took me a while. How I got through it is I relied on other people that were from my community that were going to college. There was very few, but they were still there. And another way I got through that imposter syndrome is that I mentored other students at high schools near my college. And that helped me stay connected to community. And it reminded me, like, oh, I know why I'm doing this college thing for. I know why I need to stay strong here. It's because there's people out there in the real world relying on me to get this degree so I can help the community. So, despite imposter syndrome, research shows that those who received professional coaching or mentoring were 40% more likely to overcome these feelings and achieve higher levels of job performance. Again, that social support is so important. So, for those of you listening, I want to ask you a question. Do you know the opposite of imposter syndrome? It's called self-compassion, giving yourself love and not being so hard on yourself. Self-compassion and resilience is an important skill to have. Research highlights the role of self-compassion in fostering authentic self-confidence. It suggests that people who practice self-compassion, treating themselves kindly in moments of failure, are more likely to have realistic confidence in their abilities and less likely to experience feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome. So let that sink in. When you are feeling like you took a loss, when you are feeling embarrassed, when you messed up at school or at work, rather than saying to yourself, you're so stupid, how could you have done that? Oh, I'm so dumb. I'm an idiot. Cut that out and start telling yourself, hey, you know what? I made a mistake. I'm going to correct it. I'm better than that. And I will show for it later on, right? I will grow from this learning experience. Losing is learning, folks. And when you teach yourself that, you're likely to do better and get through that imposter syndrome. So, with my journey, I get through that imposter syndrome. I graduate college, and I said, after all I've been through, I want to get the highest degree possible. I want a PhD. I want a doctorate degree. I applied to UC Berkeley, got accepted. I don't know how or why I was chosen to go there, but I ended up getting to Berkeley, another place where I felt out of place. As a matter of fact, when I got there, I start telling my cohort, the members of my class, started to tell them I'm from Oakland. I'm from the hood. I'm here to represent. I want to do good work in my community. I want to be a doctor for the hood, that kind of thing. And they were kind of snobby. They had come from places like Brown University, places like UCLA, places like Princeton, and they had a different mindset than I did. They didn't go to commuter Cal State like I did. Their mindset was, look, I'm overprepared for this graduate program. I read all the theory books. I know Marxism. I know Freud and social psychology. I know all the philosophy and literature I need to know to survive in this program. I didn't know much of that. I was underprepared. And so I'm telling them my story. And later on, I would find out that a group of my classmates made a bet. One of them made a bet with another one, and she said, I bet you the homeboy from Oakland drops out of school first semester, and you can bet me that he drops out second semester. So they were betting to see which semester I would drop out. I'm proud to tell you that I actually graduated before any of them with my PhD. And it was at graduation. They were there. They brought me a gift and they said, we want to apologize because we made this bet against you. And that was wrong of us. So, they were really nice to fess up and to apologize. But again, people are going to be betting against you in life. And that's where you're going to feel like an imposter. But if others are betting against you, I need you to double down on your own bet for yourself. There's studies that have found that first generation PhD students with higher levels of self-efficacy were better equipped to overcome imposter syndrome. Students who believed in their academic abilities were more likely to persist and complete their degrees despite common feelings of self-doubt. So in other words, self-efficacy is your ability to tell yourself every day, whether you're about to go up for a promotion at work or whether you're trying to graduate from this really tough program, it's your ability to tell yourself, I got this. Whatever it is I set myself to, I'm going to complete and I'm going to do it in a good way. So every day, affirming yourself builds that self-efficacy and you can be better at what you do. That's what the studies are showing. I want to share a little excerpt from my book, and it has to do when I got my first job as a professor. I'm standing in my university office after having spent the past half hour a few buildings away at the library, staring at a spectacular panoramic view of the Pacific Ocean from the 8th floor. It's my first month at work as a young professor at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I'm taking in the moment. I look at the wall where I have recently installed my UC Berkeley PhD diploma frame and breathe out a deep sigh. Vic, you made it, I tell myself. A rustling noise followed by a thump calls my attention. I turn around and face my office door. Another professor that works in my department, a lanky 70-year-old white man, walks into my office and throws a stack of papers on my desk. I need 70 copies for the class I'm teaching today, he tells me. In that moment, I realize he thinks I'm a new assistant, a secretary, and not a professor like him. My initial reaction is to sock him in the face. I pause for 1 second and tell him, I wrote a dissertation to earn a PhD just like you. And by the way, I wrote it with one hand while changing diapers with the other. I point to a picture of my twins, which were born while I was in grad school. He looks at me perplexed, as if he believes that someone like me could never be in this position of stature like him. His vibe is that we are not equals, and I agree. I'm here for a bigger purpose than his. I grab the stack of papers and hand them back to him. He strides away as if my presence has questioned his very existence. A few weeks later, another professor, a 60-year-old well-dressed, heavily perfumed white woman, tells me, you should come over to my place. My dog likes my gardener and my painter. I'm sure he will like you. The first few years of my career, two other professors would sit together at department meetings right across from me, give me dirty looks, and make comments to each other and to other professors about how I was not going to make it in this profession. My bosses, the chair of my department and the dean of the college, consistently pulled me aside to inform me how much these two 50-something-year-old white men were trying to sabotage my career. They even forwarded me emails as evidence. I wanted to share that excerpt because even though I had gotten a PhD from Berkeley, even though I had gotten this dream job at a university right by the beach in beautiful Southern California, I was still struggling. I was struggling financially, paying off college debt, struggling to see how I would make enough money to pay for my twins' education in the future for college. I was struggling to figure out how I would buy a house in a high pricing market for my family, struggling to support my wife, Rebecca, as she completed grad school because she had put me through grad school. She had worked full time as a school teacher to pay for me to go through grad school. So I was struggling a lot in this moment in my life, and at work, people were betting against me. People were looking down on me. People did not believe that I deserved to be there. So for me, what helped me get through all of this was to really have high emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence helps in career success, even when you're encountering these extreme moments of people betting against you. There was a study that found that emotional intelligence was a significant predictor of career advancement among early career professionals. Graduates with higher emotional intelligence were more likely to advance into leadership roles and report higher levels of career satisfaction, largely due to their ability to manage interpersonal relationships and work collaboratively. So there's a few components to emotional intelligence. Self-awareness is one of them. So I just got to understand that this racism I was facing was messing with my emotions, right? And either they could get the best of me or I could figure out a way to work through it and later on seek out justice for these injustices. Another component of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. This one's important. That's the capacity to control or redirect disruptive emotions, right? I wanted to sock that guy in the jaw, but I self-regulated, right? That emotional intelligence is so important in moments like that. Empathy, the ability to understand the emotions and needs of others, right? How can I understand the needs of these people that are being racist against me? Well, I see that they have a threat. I see that I'm someone that threatens them. I see that they haven't had their career fulfilled and they're taking it out on me, right? Because someone like me is threatening their existence. And I just have to empathize with them, right? The irony of it all is that all of those people I discussed have all since retired. And one of them, I even became his boss as associate dean of social sciences at the university. So it completely flipped over. And I didn't realize this was going to happen, but I just remained self-regulated and tried my best to empathize what must be going on with these individuals for them to get to this level of vitriol. The final component of emotional intelligence is relationship management, the ability to inspire, influence, and develop others while managing conflict effective. So I eventually became, as I mentioned before, an administrator at the university. I eventually was able to change this culture of individuals picking on young professors, especially professors of color and women, so that they could have an opportunity to make it through the system like everyone else. The equity to be able to just say, I feel safe here and no one's going to bully me because of the color of my skin or because of my gender. That's been an important cause for me to create that kind of environment. What that has taught me is that sometimes we have to wait for our justice to get paid. But if we participate in creating that justice comes to us over time. As I reflect on my journey and how I overcame the challenges life threw at me, I want to leave you with a thought. We all face adversity in life. Sometimes that adversity feels like it's too much to bear. But I'm living proof that no matter how difficult your circumstances are, you can rise above them. You can transform your struggles into your greatest strength. So whether you're listening to this podcast because you're facing your own struggles, or maybe you're an educator, a mentor, or a parent trying to help someone, provide them the social support. Remember that it's never too late to make a change. Resilience, support, and a change in mindset can help anyone turn adversity into success, turn our struggles into our superpowers. Thank you for joining me on this first episode of Sueños to Success. Next time, we'll be diving into the stories of others who have overcome immense challenges to achieve greatness. I will be featuring my great friend, the incredible DeMonte Thompson. I met him when he was an undergrad. I started to mentor him, collaborate with him, and now he's a PhD student at UCLA. Pretty soon, he'll be Dr. DeMonte Thompson. He grew up a foster kid in the streets of Compton. I'll also share some more research on what makes people successful, even after life's toughest moments. Until then, I'm Dr. Victor Rios, and remember, struggles are not the end of your journey. Your story isn't over. It's just the beginning.